was in 1946. They just had a little 7-inch screen, no coaxial cable. And of course, I didn't know fear at all. It didn't occur to me to be afraid. I had no idea. They'd say 5, 4, 3, 2. I'd say, should I marry him? 1. Hello, how are you? Whatever you'd say. Sometimes I read the script. There have been times when I haven't read it because I'm left-handed, and I start to work on it very hard, you know. So also you tend to read from the back to the front, so I know how it ended already. I will read it if I have to. Mostly I get it from the cast, whoever's cast opposite me, whoever I'm working with, whomever I'm working with whomever I'm working, I take from them because they're who defines you. The way they react to you is how you're defined. If they love you a lot, then you feel popular and liked. And if they don't react well to you, then you realize that you're some kind of problem. And the script tells you the story, the circumstances. Circumstances are very important. Literally, is it cold or hot or winter or summer or night or day or all those little circumstances. Are you comfortable or not? Do you want to do something else from what's happening right now? What are you being interrupted from doing that's catching your attention? So you're always dealing with this, but you know that something else is waiting for you. It's more interesting that way than if you're just doing that one thing. Not always, but frequently. It's important to know all that other stuff. That's what I bring to. Also, when I went to the Actors Studio, I was in the very first group that Elia Kazan picked. And when I first went to the address, there were a lot of people there. And a little girl, a thin little girl, and I thought, oh, if I could just take that little girl home with me and raise her. It was Julie Harris. Oh, she was wonderful in the Actors Studio. Jack Warden, Eli Wallach, wonderful. So many actors that you've enjoyed and loved were in that class. And anyway, Kazan emphasized using objects in a scene instead of using your face. Well, gee, you know, he would have you do something with an object that would show how you're feeling. It used to be, we'd call it soap opera acting, where you use your face, but soap operas have really improved since then. That was very helpful to me. So one of the first things I do, I have a big open place waiting for what object I'm going to find or think of or choose that will be really good, not just busy work, not just something to do, but something that will illuminate more about your character, give you a little more information. And it's so interesting. I've had so much success doing that. In one scene on stage one time, I can't remember the name of the play, but the husband, we're in business together, he and I, and he has an attack of angina, and he falls on the sofa. His secretary and the grown children are around him. Everybody's around him. I'm the wife. I can't get in to help him or say anything, and so that's the first scene is about that, and the secretary's right there with him, and so I noticed that she had her hair in a bun, and I asked her if she would mind taking her hair down. She said no. She took it down. So while they're taking care of him, I can't get in, and I take her hair, all of it, and get it over my arm, and little by little I kind of wound it, and you know when you wind hair, it suddenly goes, it kind of picks up, and you can wind it around itself. And I did that, and I wound it around itself, and I pulled it through the hole, and I went, got a big hand, within the first 2 minutes of the play. It was a good idea to think of objects. Another play with Henry Fonda. He is coming, he's in a wheelchair, and I take care of him. He's my patient, and his son is my husband. And people are coming to ask him to come and talk to them, and he's in a wheelchair. So the curtain goes up, I cross from upright down behind the sofa to down left to change the ice for the bar. And I do that, and I walk back. It couldn't have been more boring, and I was sure they were going to fire me over the weekend. They were coming to see it, and I hadn't done anything. I thought, what'll I do? What'll I do? And over the weekend, I thought, oh, I'm not really, not a victim, but I'm not really at the mercy of these people. I just want something. I want to be more important. I want to be useful and recognized as being useful. So I carry this ice across the stage. Boring, 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 boring. I get there, I fix it, and I start back in front of the sofa, and I'd fix the pillows on the sofa. As I go by, I notice they need fixing, so with my foot, I have this stuff. I fixed everything on the sofa and plumped it all up, and I got a big hand before 2 minutes was up in the first act. So I noticed that, and then later on in one of the scenes, a pretty young woman is with the major who's come to get the Henry Fonda's character. And I suggested, I never do this, but this time I suggested, he was on MASH, he had 3 names. Ogden who?
David Ogden Steers.
David Ogden Steers. I suggested to him that he try to get a drink. He had to start here and walk over for a long time. Well, he did that. Now, he started over, and he'd look at the pictures on the wall. Then he'd look over at the bar and the pictures, and he kept making his way. Finally, he finally got to the bar. But it was so funny what he did to get a drink. Anyway, at the beginning of that play, too, I wanted to show that I take care of Henry Fonda. I would not have touched him or spoken to him. I mean, he's Henry Fonda. So, I mean, at parties you might say hello, but not. So here I was. So what can I do to show that I take care of this man? He was in a wheelchair, so I got a little blanket, prop department, and I took it off. I shook it violently, just really shook it. And I folded it up very carefully, and I put it back again very neatly and kept on going. And that showed I am very good at what I do, very quick, concise, and I take care of this man. That's all I needed to do. In just about 3 seconds, I did it. But those are objects that work very well. You can see, later on in the play, I was going to tell you, David Ogden Stiers has a young girlfriend, and she's just chatting, and chatting, and chatting, and chatting. And she said, well, I couldn't be more bored, my character. And I'm sitting down front. So I said, I need something. The pop department said, well, what do you need? Well, I don't know. A candy? Well, do you want it in a bowl or with a stem? With a stem. Well, would you want it covered or uncovered? Would you want it hard candy or soft? Hard candy or soft? Well, hard candy. I don't know what the hell. Do you want it wrapped or unwrapped? I don't know why I said those things. I had no idea. So they gave me this bowl on a stem with wrapped candy covered. And she and we couldn't be more bored. And so I take the top off the thing, and I pick out a yellow one. Don't you think so? Crack. I cracked it. Oh, yes. Got a big laugh. That's the sort of thing that's wonderful to use objects. No doubt, dancing should be compulsory for every child. Oh my God, it has so much. I wish that every child could have had my teacher, Rose Lorenz. She was in her 90s, and she was at Sun City, still teaching. still teaching. And I went there, I was playing Grandma Moses, who in the first act is 45 and the second act is 100 years old. And so they took me to this place where people lived who were old, and all the 100-year-olds came out and we met each other. And Rose Lorenz was there and she was teaching them dancing. Isn't that wonderful? But she had done dancing with somebody named Ted Shawn, who I didn't know, but it was somebody important and that was very important to her. And she gave us something as little children, something that I didn't know for a long time either as an actor. And it developed into, I don't want to call it pride or, I thought acting was just fun. I still think it's just fun. I can't relate money to it or anything. It's really fun. But with Kazan, suddenly you realize you're doing something that's really important. It's important because, first of all, when somebody is talented and extraordinary, it's such a gift. Isn't it to everybody? Isn't it a gift? And when you realize that, you straighten up. You just, I've never worked in anything where I didn't give everything I have. And there are actors who, this isn't too important, so on. Yeah. But every time you do something, you learn. You never know what you're going to fall into, what the circumstances are, who you're going to be working with whom you're going to be working. So having really given your all the time, you have that to call on. It can give you everything you need. And it still does to this day. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know. The part I'm playing now in Raising Hope, I don't think I quite have it yet. I don't think they quite have it yet either in the writing. I think sometimes I have, what do you call it, dementia, and sometimes I'm perfectly normal. But how do you bridge the gap for the audience? Why do I just talk normally sometimes, and I can't quite get it together other times? How do you do that? What do I need to know? I think we need to find that out still in the doing of it. I suppose timing has a lot to do with it, of course. I think having been on the stage early on, growing up with that, you have an audience that tells you everything, and that gets inside of you. And then when you don't have one, you still have the use of that experience that you've had. I don't think I'm not a funny person. I'm silly as hell, and I laugh till I'm just sick. The other night I laughed so hard on Raising Hope. I laughed so hard at the grandfather Garrett. We were in a close-up together, and we're supposed to sing a song that's life or death. I mean, we have to do it to let the people know who are listening that we're who we say we are, not who we really are. And that look on his face, coupled with, we'd already done it, the whole thing where we all harmonized, we were perfect, and we were proud of ourselves. Now in close-ups, he didn't know the words. His character suddenly didn't know the words that came out. I started to wet my pants a little bit, and then a lot, and finally I was just soaked and hysterically laughing, and all I could think about was Harvey Korman on the Carol Burnett show when, what's his name?
Tim Conway.
Yeah, Tim.
Conway.
Yeah, Tim Conway. Oh, he's a funny man. When Tim would decide he was going to make Harvey laugh, and Harvey knew it, and he wasn't going to do it. This time he was not going to do it. He was really going to be serious and not. He just finally gave up. He'd give up. He couldn't fight it anymore. And the audience was looking forward to that each week, too. They'd wait till when Tim was going to make Harvey laugh. Imagine being Harvey. He's not going to make me laugh tonight. I tell you, this is really, well, that close-up with, it was 1 o'clock in the morning. We were so tired. We'd been working since 10 in the morning on Raising Hope, and when Garrett was singing that song, I lost it. Well, I was doing live television in the daytime and Broadway at night. Can you imagine? Oh, you couldn't buy that. It was just the times. At that time, there was no coaxial cable out to LA, and the little sets were 7 inches big. And I did an awful lot of work on Suspense. That was a show that was on once a week, and it was a suspense show, but he always hired me. Bob Stevens was the director. Every week was a new part, and he let me play it. Isn't that wonderful? And one time, I remember when the congressional hearings were on about the communists, remember? What was his name, the famous?
From Wisconsin, what's his name?
Joe McCarthy?
Joe McCarthy, yes.
Bob Stevens came to me later. He said, Cloris, I want to tell you something, but if you ever tell anybody, I will never work again. And he told me that I was on the gray list. I said, what's the gray list? He said, well, the communists. I didn't know anything about anything, Democrats, Republicans, or communists. And he said, you're on the gray list that one milk company had put me on it for knowing the author of The Crucible. And I had been in The Crucible. I was in the first play on Broadway, cast in that. And that's why I was on the gray list. Can you imagine? Phyllis, when I first read the script, said was neurotic. Well, I don't know. It didn't seem like there's a lot of humor in that or something. But anyway, eventually it turned out, I think, that I was the sure, firm touch on the wrong note. Confident, proud of all the things that you shouldn't be proud of. It developed, and they take from you, and you take from them, and you get clues, and you know, you don't know yourself till kind of do more than one show, and you see how you react, and then you learn more and more who you are. You don't necessarily know right away, specifically. Generally, yes, but to make it specific. So I think the sure, firm touch and the wrong note is a perfect way to describe Phyllis. Well, because she was confident. And when she decided, when it was all over, there was a spin-off of the Mary Tyler Moore Show to the Phyllis Show. And the first show, the pilot for that show, I'm talking to Doris, the mother in Raymond. Doris Roberts. Doris Roberts is running a show where they hire people. And she's sitting at her desk and doing things. And I come in, I'm Phyllis, you know, and I talk. And she's asking me questions, and I'm answering them. And I know all about wine, and I know about this and that and everything. And she gets a call, and she says, yes, yes, yes. She hangs up, takes her purse out of the drawer, and goes and gets the job herself. It's a good job. But that, you know, when you take a character out of a group like the Mary Tyler Moore Show, it's not a character. It's only defined by the people around you. So it was tricky. And each week I thought, who am I going to be this week? It was a little tricky. Isn't that interesting? Well, that was written in. It wasn't our idea. We loved each other. We were great friends. We'd go to lunch every day and decide what we were going to do so we wouldn't take so much time on the set, because Mary and Jay, the director, they do it, and that's the end of it. But we're both from theater, and Valerie and I think that's why you think differently. I always think it's more interesting to be higher or lower or in a different position than just a camera here and a camera there, and so that, you know, you have to adapt to that. Either they have to adapt to you, or you have to And it's a 4-camera show. Tricky. I never did learn what I should have about cameras. I would never be a good director. I would paint myself in a corner. Highly skilled. Well, she'd had a lot of experience, don't forget, with Dick Van Dyke. I remember being in, I think I was in Seattle one day having lunch, and 2 people at another table were talking about, well, who does she think she is? Mary Tyler Moore. She can be the leading role in a sitcom because she'd played the wife always. Isn't that interesting how, and of course when she came on, it changed America. So many women have told me it changed their lives, made it possible for them to work themselves. I remember when I was little, I was either going to be a social worker or a concert pianist or an architect or marry an architect. Because in my day, you know, women didn't do those things. Well, on Malcolm in the Middle, I couldn't believe what I was supposed to do. I have a knitting needle. My grandson's here, perfectly lovely, darling boy, and I get mad. I don't know what, I stab him with my knitting needle in his thigh, and he goes, ow! Oh, and because he goes on about it, I jiggle, I'm just horrible. Isn't that terrible? And another time I threw a rock at somebody who had made a couple of jibes at my grandson on Malcolm in the Middle, and he comes back, and I let him beat him up. I want him to learn. It's so stupid. One time, I played Ernie Kovacs, who was a wonderful comedian in New York for many years, and he had a nighttime show. And I played his mother in the dramatizing of it. And who was his wife who smoked a cigar and played Muriel? She was a beautiful, darling, blonde girl. And she was married to him. And I asked her before I did it, what can you tell me about this mother? And she said, well, we went to court one day, and this was also in the story that we played. And the judge gives Ernie Kovacs his children instead of the mother. And his mother, that I was playing, turned around and bit his wife, no, kissed her and then bit her on the lip. And I heard that and I thought, she's a gypsy. She's a gypsy. I mean, right now, it's clear. And we came to a scene where I have to pack a suitcase. I'm packing a suitcase as the children are readying to leave with their mother. And we're in a hotel. And so I knew we were shooting in a hotel. I sent down for some chocolate, what are those things, wrapped up chocolate things?
Claire?
Like that, like a chocolate eclair. And so they came. So I wrapped them up in a dish rag or something and put them in the side, like a gypsy. I was giving them food to eat, you know. So that gave me a clue that she bit her. I didn't decide she was bad, but fundamental. Eat, survive, live, you know, 1, 2, 3, not things that are, you know, anything but survival. I had just had my 3rd baby, that would be Sky's father, Georgie, and I was nursing him, and I got a call from a new agency, the William Morris agency, please come down. And I said, well, I just had a baby, and I really don't want to work for a while. I just want to nurse my baby and be with him. And they said, well, just come say hello to the guys. I said, okay. So I went down there, I said hello to the guys. I ended up leaving as the mother of Lassie. Well, I got, you know, every time I learned a lot from that show. One thing I learned was you can't go anywhere or you have an idea. They said, remember, the name of the game is Lassie. Oh, okay. If you're trying to walk, somebody says something which stops you. They'd want me to stop before they'd said it quite. So I developed this thing with kind of a basket. I'd let that stop because I had to stop. So I'd stop and let that stop at the time when they'd speak. Or one other thing, what did I do? Timmy would come in and say, "Oh, Mom," I'd be washing the windows with that stuff you used to put on windows that would dry, and then you'd wipe it. Windex was very popular in those days. "Mom, quick, blah, 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 blah." And I'd say, "Well, there's some chocolate cake and milk in the fridge, and Uncle Petrie's, you know, go tell Uncle Petrie." And I'd be, and okay. And also he'd say, "Mom," I'd say, "Timmy, time to go to bed now. Let's go to bed." He'd say, "Mom, I can't. I have to go get the rabbits." "Well, all right, but hurry." Now, in the scene that you would see, the editing department, he would say, "Mom, I've got to go get my you got to go to bed, Timmy." "No, Mom, I got to go get the rabbits." "All right, well, I'd look at the husband. He'd look at the boy would look at the dog would look at the husband. The dog would look at me, I'd look at the dog. The boy would look at me, I'd look at him and the dog and the husband, and I'd say, "Well, all right, but hurry." I mean, it took 2 minutes longer. Or you hold a little boy and they say, "Don't touch him." "Why? He's my little boy." "No, don't touch him." "Why?" "It costs $1,500 a year to light your hands on his neck." "Okay, well, that's what I was learning." Anyway, then I gave an interview to TV Guide, to a well-known writer, and I was saying that the husband, they put a husband on with me for the first time in all of the LASSIE stories, and they finally realized that they don't need a husband because the dog's supposed to save the day. The husband's always out in the North 40. So in the writing of this article, they'd had to put a pad on him under his work shirt to beef him up. And I touched him, he practically fell over, just things like that. But it looked as if I were pushing him around or doing something stronger than he was. And then it didn't come out nicely at all. In fact, he left TV Guide as a result of that article. But they didn't have us back. They didn't have him back the next year, and they said, "Well, let's make it a clean break." So I only did it for a year for that reason. We ran that school, Northwestern. He was already formed. There was no reason for him to go to college that I know of, although he finished. I left after my second year. They put me in a Miss America contest, as it turned out. 3 contests ending in that, and the day after the contest in Atlantic City, my father had come, and my mother was with me. And Daddy gave me $60 to go to New York for 3 days. Imagine that. That's $20 a day for New York City. And I stayed 8 years. I went home for Christmas, but I went right back. I'd gotten the lead in a Rodgers and Hammerstein comedy 3 months after I got there. Isn't that wild? Wild. I wasn't afraid. I had so much confidence. I didn't know what competition was. And later, after I'd been at the Actors Studio for 2 years, I remember being in a large group of people for some, I think I couldn't even read. I couldn't believe there was competition. Holy Toledo. Well, I always thought I'd just go there and get the part. Came in through the front. I hadn't read it. I didn't know anything. And the wife was there, beautiful, wonderful actress. And she said, "Oh my God." She said, "Well, what's his name is in the little boys' room. He'll be out in a minute." And she said, "Oh my God, put some powder in your face." I didn't have any makeup on. She gave me her powder puff. It was a huge puffy thing, you know, and I was completely white, completely white. And I went up on the stage with a script, and somebody read with me, and I read whatever it was, and I thought I did a very good job. And they said, "Thank you very much." They walked down and walked out, and I walked on the stage out with them. They were paralleling them, and I said, "How was it?" She said, "Oh, my dear, we didn't hear a thing." And that was the end of that. I've always thought I had a long nose, little eyes and a long nose, and a kind of a big mouth. But things have sort of normalized, I think. I've sort of literally fallen into place. And I think I have a good face. It can do different things. It can look like different things. If I turn this way, I look like Margaret Rose or a witch. If I turn this way, I can play the other side. I played a lovely woman and her sister, who was kind of a witch, twins, with the the twins. What are their names? With the Olsen twins. It was a Halloween thing. I suppose I just do what I do. I was on the Marlo Thomas show one time, and the hairdresser did her hair. I mean, did her hair all the time. Every time it say cut, she'd run back, and she had a little dog that sat there, and it was only her chair and the mirror and the hairdresser. And then I had to get my hair done, so I was sitting there, and the dog barked at me the whole time. It's not your chair, that's Marlo Thomas's chair. Oh my God. And I don't know what I said, something, and they told Marlo, and she goes, oh, you're not going to do this show ever again? I said, yeah, I would. Isn't that funny, though? I loved Marlo. She was an interesting woman. She's still doing her thing, isn't she? It was in 1946. They just had a little 7-inch screen, no coaxial cable. And of course, I didn't know fear at all. It didn't occur to me to be afraid. I had no idea. They'd say 5, 4, 3, 2. I'd say, should I marry him? 1. Hello, how are you? Whatever I'd say. It was great fun and wonderful. I was doing one version of Titanic. I did 3 of them. One was in England, a $6 million project, and it was about the people in the lower part of the boat, where they locked the gates and wouldn't let them out. 1,500 people died who were locked out. Isn't that horrible? They were the Irish, the poor Irish. The director had just directed me in that, and he told me about Barbara Bel Geddes. He was doing something with her. He was up high in this particular place where they were shooting, and down below they were dressing. Then here's the set. He could see it from up above. And Barbara Bel Geddes had run up, quickly changed. She heard her cue. She wasn't dressed. She had no top on. She tore out. Boy, when you have to get there, you get there, ready or not. She tore out without a top on, and he tore out with 2 doors which have a vacuum, you know, and like a football. He tore out. He tackled her, and they went to the ground just before she went in the door. She would have gone in there with no top on to just make her cue. I remember being on several live shows. One was out here. It was called Matinee Theater. And it's a huge area. They have different sets, and I had to go from one to the other and change costumes. And they changed my entire costume from here over to there while the cameras are moving. And they got everything up, and I suddenly didn't have a bottom on. And that's my line. So everybody adapts, whatever you have to do. Either another camera was on me or I was somewhere else, or they just did this from here up. But people laughing. Live television was wonderful. I'm sorry they don't have it anymore, because the things that happen are just, you couldn't plan them. A very famous actress many, many years ago played Night Must Fall, and she's alone in her house. It's very frightening, whatever the setup is. And the prop man, had 2 lights like automobile lights, and he came behind the set, behind her in the sofa in the living room. He was being a car going. He didn't realize he was right on the set with her. It's so easy to do cliches. We all know what they're. In fact, some actors who think they're really good and they aren't, they think they're good because they know the cliches. Oh, I know, you stand this way, or you don't cry, or you do, or whatever. At this point, it's all cliches. So you have to think, I know what this is about, but how can I do it in a more interesting or fresher way? One time, I think it was in Suspense, I had the same role. It was a different character, of course, exactly the same role. Like, I thought, I can't do the same thing. I can't do that. I did that already. And so I had to find other sides of this person. It was tricky too. It wasn't easy. But having done it and successfully, it was a big lesson, and it's always been a big challenge then not to repeat myself and not to do cliches. Even a script will say she comes and sits, and so, well, you don't want to sit then. You find a way to do something else, or maybe start to sit and not, or get on one leg, or lean. There's no balance. I don't know how to tell you. It's just, I'm not busy all the time at all. I always took my little girl in my back pocket wherever I went. She learned 3 languages as if she lived there. Italian and Spanish, and what's another one? English. French, yeah, French. I had a period of time when my children were young. I don't think I worked that much. At one point, I joined CAA so I could meet Jack Nicholson and work in films. I had not one single job in 3 years. Not one, nor did I meet Jack Nicholson, nor have I ever met him. I always had a housekeeper who was excellent. And I always had food, from bananas and avocados and stuff like that, oranges, to frozen food, to other things so that if they were hungry. But when I do the Mary Tyler Moore Show, they wouldn't have dinner till I came home. It could be 10, 5, 6, 7, 8, 11, 10, 11. I had to cook dinner, and we all had dinner together. They wouldn't eat until I came home. But there were 5 of them, and I thought, well, it's a family. I didn't know they were just, you know, torturing Dinah, these 4 boys. She got very strong, though. When I did Migrants, that I think that really affected me. And I realized it was because I had children in it. Ronnie Howard and Cindy Williams. She was my daughter and he was my son. And we worked so hard. And if your car wasn't ready, you couldn't go with the rest of the guys out to the fields, and you'd lose a day. And the foreman always had your money or no money, and you always owed him. So we couldn't go anywhere or buy anything or go into town. People didn't like us. And those children, my husband found a rabbit trap. It's just wire, little rabbit. He found it, and I made a stew for our family and another family. And the sheriff is coming on. He finds our rabbit, and he takes it, and I scream. I screamed. I wanted to scream like the first scream of mankind. Just that deep and telling and important forever, you know, the one man human scream. And when I saw it or heard it, I thought, what happened to my scream? And the sound man had toned it down. Isn't that heartbreaking? And I threw myself off the porch. It was about 3 steps. If my husband caught me, or I would have fallen. That material, what we did, I couldn't get over it for weeks, And I'm sure it was because of the children. And in the story, they have a little baby, her daughter has a baby, and she's out in the cornfield crying. It's just going to have a terrible life, you know. And one time, my own daughter was in it too. She was about 6, 5 and a half or 6. And we're coming into the fields, and the director wanted me to come down near a pickup truck and have a little scene. And I couldn't. I can't come. Why not? My daughter's up. He didn't know what to do. And I didn't. And some guy picked her up, put him on his shoulders, and went on with her. And I knew I could do the scene then because somebody took care of her. It was that important and real. I'd love to do something serious again. What I think is fun to bring comedy to serious things and bring serious things to comedy.
Tell me more.
I remember one I did some kind of a craft hour show. And I was a little secretary, and I kept getting scary calls. And finally, the police come over, and they're questioning me, and they say, well, do you have any valuables? And I go, well, No. I have a I asked for a little teeny tiny pearl necklace, tiny little, well, no. Yes, no. But that to me was funny, even though nobody knew it. I never know what's next. Really, I never know. I'd love to know what's next. I can't wait. It's so exciting. It really is exciting. And I love doing Raising Hope. It's just, I have maybe one sentence a week to learn. I love the people on it. Everybody is brilliantly cast, I think, and I love Greg Garcia. I'm sure whatever will come along, and I'll be doing it, and I'll find out. I had a terrible time on one show called Something to the White House. A big important thing. And this director had come across the Atlantic Ocean from England to America in a boat all by himself, and he was so proud of that. He just couldn't get over it. And what does that have to do with directing? Anyway, I had to go out of the room, and he wanted me to stop for no reason. It was too soon. There was no reason to stop then. And I couldn't justify it, and I don't know, that sort of thing. Just arbitrary. We didn't get along. And I don't even know how I did it. I was quite upset through most of it. Just arbitrary. And I've never had that before. Usually I just start out, and sometimes I don't know what to do at all. Or they'll say, do what you feel. I don't feel anything. But I learned sometimes if you don't know what to do and it's confusing, go to zero. Just go to zero. Don't do anything. Don't know anything. And out of that, something happens. Something will happen. It's all right. The audience is always with you. Brilliant, brilliant movie. It's a perfect film. It couldn't be improved one stitch. Gene would always laugh. He'd laugh till we'd do 15 takes because he couldn't. I'd say, stay close to the candles. I'd look at him and his face would be in two pieces. And then Mel Brooks gave me a one-line reading him, all that I've ever done with him. I said, stay close to the candles. The staircase can be treacherous. He gave me this line reading. Stay close to the candles. The staircase can be treacherous. That means a couple of people have died already. Isn't that funny? Oh.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, but when we did in Young Frankenstein, when we did this scene where I say, would you care for a brandy perhaps before we die? Mel put me here and Gene there, and then he went over near the camera. And we did it. And whatever I did, Gene did exactly the same thing on the other side. I said, would you care for a brandy perhaps before we die? He said, no, thank you. But then I would say, good night, good night. And I'd start, he'd start, I'd stop, he'd stop. I turned, he turned, I came back, I said, warm milk? No. Thank you. Ovaltine? He's the reason that scene is so funny. No, thank you. Well, that's not, he wasn't nice about it. Not no, thank you. It was no, thank you. Well, then I would say good night. Good night. Isn't that funny? Oh God, to work with Gene Wilder is heaven. Heaven. He was just darling and funny and wonderful. Wasn't he a wonderful? Ah, everybody in that movie. I had just put a mustache on myself with a black pencil for God knows what reason. None. I'd already been made up. I was all ready, and I was just, nothing to do. And I had, Cloris, yeah? Come on. Oh, okay. I tore out in the set, and I said, Mel, how do you want me to play this? And he said, well, I said, I did that already. He said, when? I said, and young Frankenstein. He said, oh. He said, well, how do you want to play it? I said, I don't know, but I'm so hateful and evil, I don't want anybody to recognize me, and I think they know my smile from the Mary Tyler Moore Show. So I think maybe if I don't smile, I kind of talk like that. He said, you want to be that crazy? And I said, well, and just then Harvey arrived, everybody arrived, we started working, and I had a pencil on my mustache for every scene after that. And we did it, and we never said another word about it, and I just did it that way. That's what happened. It's so odd, isn't it? Because it was so bizarre, far out. Nobody planned it that way. It's just not to be recognized. Well, I learned the lines on the way to the set, and I did one take, and he said, that's it. Peter, please, no. That was it. I still think I could do the first part of the scene better. Oh, we had one scene in the bedroom, a tiny little room, and getting cameras in there, and the operators and directors, and we stood there, Timmy and Peter and cinematographer and I, and Timmy said, I ain't taking off my clothes for this scene. Okay. So we had to design it in a way where he didn't take his clothes off. So we did. You saw it. We went to each closet and took all our clothes off except my bra and my pants and his underpants. And then we got in the bed, and then they have put in a bra and pants and for him some shorts to throw out, and we keep on our own stuff. First thing I did was take off my bra and my pants and throw them out. Cut. We had to do it again. My character did it. Timmy, I think, was smoking pot in those days, probably still, but anyway, then. And so he wasn't too close to us, too available, we were all tight, but he wasn't. And Peter got very angry with him. I don't think they spoke for a long time. They finally made up. But it was hard. One scene, I was brushing his hair, as of the script says I do that. I finally said, do you want me to brush your hair or not? It was difficult. He was wonderful in it, though, wasn't he? Oh, wonderful. I knew it somehow. I didn't know it literally, but when I was about 6 years old, I remember seeing myself in a pool of light. That's all. That much I knew. And I went to the fair, the Iowa State Fair, when I was 7, and there was a gypsy there, and she read my palm, and these are the words she said, someday you will be before millions of people.